London, 1961. A summer of elegance, champagne, and secrets. Three strangers meet by chance at a country estate. A British war hero, a 19-year-old dancer, and a Soviet spy. None of them know it yet, but that single afternoon will set in motion a scandal that will shake an empire. One affair, one lie, one downfall that would bring a government to its knees. This is the affair that toppled a government. In the heart of the Cold War, when the world held its breath for fear of nuclear annihilation, Britain faced an unexpected enemy. Not a missile, not a submarine, not even a shadowy spy ring in the traditional sense. No, the biggest threat to the conservative government of the day was something far more mundane, yet infinitely more insidious. A birthday party at a lavish country estate. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? But sometimes, history hinges on the most unlikely of catalysts. Picture this. One respectable government minister, one vivacious 19-year-old dancer, and one suspiciously charming Soviet attaché. They all walked away from that fateful party, and within a year, the very foundations of the British government were shaking, teetering on the brink of collapse. How could a seemingly innocent 5-minute conversation beside a swimming pool bring a country to its knees? How could a private indiscretion unravel an entire administration? Well, to understand that, we need to rewind, strip back the layers, and see how a secret affair became a national crisis. It's July 1961, and London is buzzing. The post-war austerity is fading, replaced by a growing sense of liberation, a hint of the swinging 60s just around the corner. But beneath the surface, there's a certain restlessness, even boredom in some quarters. This is where our story truly begins, with the infamous Profumo-Keeler-Ward triangle. Like so many scandals, it starts not with malice, but with a quiet dissatisfaction. Meet John Profumo. At 46, he's the war secretary, a man of impeccable lineage and a decorated war hero, with a Victoria Cross proudly displayed. He holds a safe seat in Parliament, his career seemingly unassailable. Yet, for all his public success, the day-to-day grind of politics has begun to feel stale. Perhaps a touch of midlife ennui, a craving for something more vibrant than endless parliamentary debates. Then there's Christine Keeler, barely out of her teens. A club dancer, she hails from the grittier, wrong side of the Thames, a stark contrast to Profumo's polished world. But what she lacks in social standing, she makes up for in sheer charisma. With cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass and a magnetic personality, she's navigating a world where charm and looks can open doors, and where rent is always due tomorrow. She's ambitious, vulnerable, and living life on her own terms, or so she believes. And finally, Stephen Ward, an osteopath to the rich and famous. His client list reads like a who's who of earls and film stars. But Ward isn't just a healer. He's a social architect, a master of ceremonies, a man who loves collecting interesting people more than he ever loved medicine. He thrives on connection, on bringing disparate worlds together. It's Ward who plays Cupid, extending an invitation to both Profumo and Keeler for a weekend pool party at Cliveden House, an opulent estate that practically drips with aristocratic history. It's there, amidst the summer sunshine and polite chatter, that the fuse is lit. Profumo spots Christine emerging from the cool water, a vision in a borrowed bikini. It's an electrifying moment, a clash of worlds. One introduction, one shared smile, and the spark ignites. What seemed like a casual encounter at a glamorous party was about to become the genesis of a national nightmare, the parallel track. While John Profumo was busy navigating the corridors of power, perhaps even sending discreet notes to his wife about parliamentary vote counts, Christine Keeler was leading a dramatically different, far more perilous double life. You see, Profumo wasn't the only powerful man in her orbit. She was also intimately involved with Yevgeny Ivanov, a Soviet naval attaché based in London. But here's the kicker. Ivanov wasn't just a diplomat. He was a known intelligence officer, a spy operating right under the noses of British security. This is where the affair spirals from a private indiscretion into a matter of national security. Ivanov, in what can only be described as a moment of audacious bragging, reported back to Moscow that he was confident he could extract British rocket secrets between the sheets from Keeler. The implication was clear, chilling, and utterly terrifying in the context of the Cold War. The thought of sensitive military information being compromised through a honey trap was every intelligence agency's worst nightmare. Alarm bells were ringing, but quietly, within the walls of MI5. Their files clearly noted the dangerous overlap, a senior British minister and a Soviet spy sharing a mistress. Yet, in a monumental failure of communication, or perhaps a desperate attempt to avoid scandal, nobody officially informed Profumo. Can you imagine? The war secretary, entrusted with Britain's defenses, unknowingly entangled in a web of espionage, and his own intelligence services couldn't or wouldn't tell him. By October 1961, Profumo, perhaps sensing the peril or simply trying to exert some control, wrote Christine a now infamous note. "Darling, avoid the Russian. He's trouble." He was right, of course, but his attempt to distance her and himself from Ivanov was a desperate and ultimately futile gesture. Christine, for reasons only she truly understood, kept the letter. It seemed innocent enough at the time, a private warning. But private lives rarely stay private, especially when they brush against the fringes of the underworld. The first crack in the carefully constructed facade appeared not from the halls of power, but from the streets of London. The press, with its insatiable appetite for scandal, started sniffing around a street fight involving Christine's jealous ex-boyfriend and a .38 revolver. Suddenly, the girl who danced in a Soho basement was front-page news, and the tangled threads of her life began to unravel for the whole world to see. The denial. The whispers started subtly, then grew into a roar. By March 1963, the rumors were too loud to ignore, echoing through the hallowed halls of Parliament itself. Labour MPs, armed with newspaper clippings and a keen sense of political opportunism, began waving headlines in the House of Commons. The question hung heavy in the air, a devastating accusation. Minister sharing mistress with Soviet spy. True or false? The political temperature in the chamber soared. John Profumo knew he had to respond. He stood up, a respected figure, a man whose word carried weight. He looked the House of Commons squarely in the eye and delivered a categorical denial that would haunt him and the government for years to come. There was no impropriety, he declared, his voice firm, his demeanor unwavering. The chamber, perhaps in a collective sigh of relief, or perhaps in a shared act of self-deception, gave him a standing ovation. The Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, even patted him on the back, a gesture of public support that would soon turn to ashes. But behind the scenes, the truth was a far more dangerous beast. MI5, of the national security implications, had been desperately begging Profumo to come clean. They understood the gravity of the situation, the potential for blackmail, the damage to Britain's international standing. They urged him to confess, to mitigate the fallout. But Profumo, perhaps paralyzed by fear, pride, or a misguided sense of loyalty, steadfastly refused. He doubled down on his lie. His wife, Valerie Hobson, a former actress, stood stoically by his side, clad in pearls and gloves, projecting an image of unwavering support and respectability. It was a powerful tableau, a public performance designed to quell the storm. And for a brief, precarious moment, it worked. The story, seemingly debunked by a minister's solemn word to Parliament, died down. The country breathed a collective sigh of relief. But like a dormant volcano, it was only quiet for 4 months, gathering pressure for an inevitable, explosive eruption. The fragile peace shattered in June. The catalyst? Not a spy, not a minister, but Stephen Ward. Police charged him with the archaic offense of living off the earnings of prostitutes, a polite euphemism for pimping. It was a sensational arrest, and what they found next was even more explosive. They seized his address book, a veritable treasure trove of secrets. Names, dates, times, hotel receipts. A meticulous record of Ward's high society connections and their less than respectable liaisons. It was a Pandora's box, and once opened, there was no closing it. For Christine Keeler, the writing was on the wall. Facing her own potential perjury charges for her previous statements, she realized with chilling clarity that she was being set up as the ultimate scapegoat. She was the vulnerable one, the one with the least to lose, and the most to tell. In a desperate move, perhaps for financial security, perhaps for revenge, she sold her explosive story to the Sunday Mirror for a staggering £23,000, a fortune in 1963. The headline that screamed across the nation's breakfast tables was a gut punch. War Minister lied. The impact was immediate, devastating, and irreversible. The truth, meticulously denied for months, was now undeniable. Profumo's public declaration in Parliament, the very bedrock of British democracy, had been a lie. Within hours, John Profumo walked into number 10 Downing Street. He didn't offer a lengthy explanation or a plea for understanding. He simply penned a one-sentence resignation letter, a stark acknowledgement of his downfall. And then, just like that, he disappeared from public life, a ghost haunted by his own deceit. Overnight, the government lost not only its safest pair of hands in a crucial ministry, but also its last shred of public trust. The affair wasn't just a scandal, it was a profound betrayal, a wound inflicted directly on the heart of British political integrity. If you're finding yourself captivated by these deep dives into the moments that truly rewrote political history, don't miss out on what's next. Hit that subscribe button and stick around, because history's messiest, most human, and most impactful chapters are just getting started. The dominoes. With Profumo gone, the press didn't just smell blood. They were in a full-blown feeding frenzy. The floodgates of suspicion burst open. Every cabinet member, every junior minister, every figure even tangentially connected to the establishment was suddenly under intense scrutiny. The unspoken question hung in the air. Any secrets you'd like to share? The public, once trusting, was now deeply cynical, convinced that the entire government was rotten to the core. The ripple effects were immediate and far-reaching. Two junior ministers, caught in the unforgiving glare of the public eye, resigned for entirely unrelated affairs. Their indiscretions, which might have been quietly managed in a different era, were now intolerable. The atmosphere of scandal had made even minor transgressions politically fatal. It was a clear sign that the rules had changed, and drastically. The public's disillusionment found a powerful voice in popular culture. The satirical television show, That Was the Week That Was, became an overnight sensation, its ratings rocketing as it mercilessly mocked the Prime Minister and his embattled government each Saturday night. It captured the national mood, channeling anger and frustration into witty, biting humor, further eroding the government's authority and dignity. By October, the strain proved too much. Harold Macmillan, the quintessential Edwardian gentleman, a figure who embodied a fading era of British imperial confidence, was hospitalized with prostate trouble. While a genuine ailment, it offered a convenient, if somber, exit from an increasingly untenable position. He resigned, reportedly telling the Queen, with a profound weariness, "The country no longer wishes to hear my voice." It was the end of an era, hastened by a scandal that had stripped away the last vestiges of deference and respect. Alec Douglas Home inherited a party in disarray, trailing a staggering 11 points behind Labour in the polls. The damage was done, the trust shattered. 12 months later, the Labour Party, led by Harold Wilson, swept to power, winning by a narrow but decisive 4 seats. One affair, one lie, one catastrophic loss of public faith didn't just end careers, it irrevocably shifted the political landscape and flipped a parliamentary majority, forever altering the course of British history. The human cost. While the political earthquake subsided, the personal aftershocks continued to reverberate with devastating force. Nobody involved in the Profumo affair truly escaped clean. Christine Keeler, the young woman at the heart of the storm, served 9 months in prison for perjury. Her release was no reprieve. Photographers waited outside the jail gates every single day, relentless in their pursuit. Her life, already complex, was permanently branded by the scandal. She struggled for decades, unable to escape the notoriety, forever defined by that brief, tumultuous period. Stephen Ward, the osteopath and social connector, became the ultimate scapegoat. His trial, a sensational public spectacle, painted him as a morally corrupt figure. Hours before the verdict, facing almost certain conviction and public ruin, he tragically overdosed on sleeping tablets. His death cast a long, dark shadow over the affair, raising uncomfortable questions about the justice system and the destructive power of public shaming. John Profumo, the minister who lied, chose a path of profound atonement. He disappeared from the public eye, exchanging parliamentary debates for scrubbing floors at Toynbee Hall, a charitable institution in London's East End. For over 40 years, he refused to speak publicly about the affair, dedicating his life to quiet, selfless service. In a remarkable turn, he eventually earned a quiet rehabilitation, recognized for his decades of good work, a testament to a man who, despite his colossal error, sought to redeem himself. And what of Yevgeny Ivanov, the Soviet attaché whose intelligence games ignited the fuse? He was recalled to Moscow, given a desk job, and reportedly drank himself into an early grave. A less dramatic but equally tragic end for the spy caught in the crossfire of sex, politics, and the Cold War.
The aftershock.
So, what does the Profumo affair truly teach us? It's a stark, enduring lesson. In a democracy, secrets, particularly those held by those in power, rot from the inside out. One seemingly small lie, uttered under the grand chandelier of the House of Commons, can do infinitely more damage to the fabric of a nation than any spy's microfilm or any external enemy's machinations. It's a testament to the fragile yet vital currency of trust. The scandal didn't just expose individual failings. It ushered in Britain's modern era. It solidified the aggressive, often intrusive tactics of the tabloid press. It cemented a deep-seated public cynicism towards politicians and institutions. And crucially, it established an unwritten, yet now unbreakable rule. If a minister misleads Parliament, resignation isn't just an option. It's the only acceptable currency for betrayal. The next time someone claims that private lives can or should stay private, especially when those lives intersect with public office, remember the country estate party. Remember the 3 people who chatted innocently by a swimming pool. And remember how, in the churning waters of scandal that followed, an entire government ultimately drowned.